So I'll call the Community Center Exploration Committee meeting to order. It's Monday, January 22nd, 2024. It is 6:03 p.m. All voting members are present, and a few of our ex officio members are here as well. First order of business, thank you, Susan. Approval of meeting minutes from January 8, 2024. Were there any comments? One really minor thing, Susan, was when we talk about NERI, it says before town meeting, it should be before the town election. It's the last word in that section.
Yes. For the Maytown election. Got it.
Yes. But other than that, I didn't have anything else. So any other edits? All right, then I will move that we approve the minutes with that one minor edit. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Tim. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Nikki?
Yes.
Susan?
Yep.
Jen?
Yes.
Tim?
Yep.
Bill?
Yep.
Janet?
Yep.
And I am as well. So that's unanimous 7-0. Very quick NERI Building Committee update. You're going to start to see a lot of communication come from the superintendent as early as this week in the committee there. There will be opportunities for residents and employees and town boards to start becoming involved in we're in the educational visioning process. So basically, Jen, I think this is really important for recreation in particular. When you think about kind of the fields that are already there, what may become. So just be on the lookout for that. There will be, I think, up to 3 public sessions where I don't want to call it a charrette, but it sounds very similar to that. They didn't use those exact words, but again, lots of opportunities no matter which group you represent to be involved there, and obviously very vital to how this project potentially does or doesn't move forward in the future as well. Nothing, any questions on that? Okay. Next item is review and accept the final DRA report. So let me just give an update on where I think we're at based on the motions and discussion we had last meeting. So I went back to DRA and asked them to run option 1D as in Delta. That was what the committee had all agreed would be high intensity renovation for the senior center based on the approximate square footage that they would occupy, and then some low intensity renovation for library, recreation, and other kind of adjacencies with nothing major going on in the remaining square footage outside of the senior center. DRA ran an updated spreadsheet and sent it back. We'll go through that in a second. Their intent would be once the committee is comfortable with that spreadsheet, they would attach it as an appendix to their report with a denotion that they were directed by this committee to, like, based on all the iterations they had done in option 1, A, B, and C, and then obviously the newer options that come beyond that they were directed by this committee to kind of put together option 1D as the best case scenario that we saw coming out of this group's work to then inform a future work. They did not want to go back into kind of the actual report and start adding it in because they thought it was important to show kind of how this all developed over time. So that was their recommendation. We can all talk about that. So once we theoretically approve and agree with option 1D, then they would just add it and issue us a final report that we could send to the select board in advance of our meeting with them. The other thing I'll point out is in the spreadsheet itself, they contemplated and will update and provide us a version that says 2028 as opposed to 2027, mainly based on the move-in date that the NERI Building Committee is working with, regardless of what happens there, whether it be reno, addition, or new construction. Obviously, that could be pulled forward and should be only favorable, and we don't expect that to go back at this moment. The good news is based on their latest thinking, they actually don't think that year change makes a difference in the math and the escalation that they've been using to date. So good news is the numbers haven't moved, but the nomenclature will move. Assume that's how we want them to present it. And then the final thing I will just point out is in the spreadsheet itself, there's clearly a cost to high intensity renovation on the senior center side, but then there's zeros next to the low intensity. A few of you actually asked if I could pass it along, and I had asked them to. They believe at this moment that they've kind of mapped it in together into that one lump sum. If we feel more comfortable kind of breaking it out into two, I can ask them to do that as part of our whatever final motions we do. But I just figured I would answer that question because I know it popped up to at least me on initial review, and a few of you actually sent an email asking if we could pass that along. So that's all what I have. And I believe was all the homework from last meeting, but I am fine to be corrected as well on all of that. Go ahead, Tim.
I'd be favorable to having the 1D broken out in the low, whatever would fall in the low versus the high, just to show it better as that not 1C option, which is the closest comparison to the moment. The one thing that I wasn't sure about still is how this shows up in the larger report. With the 1A, 1B, 1C options, the feasibility study long form. I'd like to see the two things complement each other.
So can you just give a page number just so we're all make sure we talk about the right thing of where
So the 50-page document that is the feasibility study. I don't believe I've seen any updated one since the last meeting, so I'm
there
still
isn't one. Nope.
Yep. So I would just like to see just a note in there that says 1D that simply outlines the high level of what 1D is, because it just doesn't specifically, we don't have anything that specifically connects the dots of the cost spreadsheet with what it means from a build out standpoint.
Okay.
I just would love to see that dot connected.
Okay. So would you be comfortable if they add a paragraph in the main thing referencing the appendix, which is their intention, explaining how 1D came about and what it is?
Yeah, as long as it's clear what it consists of, the same way that everything else is broken out, as long as there's a clear understanding of what 1D is, where it says one section's a high intensity, the other two sections are low, and it's just, as long as it specifies what it did, I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Isn't that what the appendix is going to be? Or are you saying, Tim, that you also want it in the main body? Because they mentioned because of the continuity of how the project was developed, I think that we want to leave 1D out of the final report main body and leave it just as an appendix, which makes sense.
Let me go to the last page here and see how the appendix is laid out. Yeah, I would rather see it in the main body because I don't quite connect the dots as it's a real item without just, I mean, it seems like it would make sense to fit after 1C, just put 1D and just have that same front page outline that says what it is. I mean, maybe we don't have to go in depth with all the other pages, but the appendix doesn't seem to, it seems more like noted conditions of the spaces.
Should be okay with a paragraph, but you want it in the body of the report, not like a full section for 1D.
It doesn't have to be a full section. Just it should just say took elements of 1A and 1C and put them together to make a cost-effective solution that meets the needs of the senior center. Like I feel like it doesn't need to be a lot.
As long as it doesn't need to be a lot, I think they would probably, I don't want to speak for them, but I can't imagine they're going to argue about I'm making up page 20 versus page 50. So
Yeah.
I'd be willing to go along with that if that gets us over the finish line.
I just want the two pieces of paper to be able to reference back to each other that says this spreadsheet references this thing, and it's just kind of clearly laid out together. Any
other comments on that particular piece? Tim, did you have any other comments on the report as it existed at the last meeting? 'Cause I know you wanted more time on that.
No, I read through it all. I'm good with everything. The only thing I'd like to see is just that 1D note.
Okay.
And then
So,
the,
go ahead.
the only other comment I had was on the spreadsheet. We kind of have that rubric on the one tab. If we wanted to update that rubric for what the trade-offs are for the 1D option, which is not listed as well.
And you're talking about, I'm just opening that file. You're talking about the options assessment tab.
Yeah, I believe so. I'm trying to reopen it, but I'm having Excel issues. But yeah, the comparative tab versus the first tab, which I believe is the options assessment, which is like a rubric.
So would everyone agree it's essentially all green across in that instance? Right, that it basically meets what everyone's looking for and is the most cost effective? Or is there a yellow somewhere in there? Because I think they'd be looking to us as the ones that kind of quote unquote architected that one to weigh in.
Is that a library storage only for that option?
Yes. So it would not be like a new library or an annex.
Right, so green across except for the yellow box for like 1B.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a good way of putting it.
Okay.
But clearly meets senior center. Jen, I think it would more than accomplish what Rec's looking for. No limitations on camp. And it would allow us to have short-term library if we needed to for temporary. And it would solve your storage. It just wouldn't be your permanent library moving forward. Okay. That's a good comment, Tim. Thank you. All right, then I am going to try a motion and see where we end. So I'm going to move that we accept the DRA report and with the comment noted that they will add a paragraph describing option 1D to the main body and provide that as additional exhibit to the select board as documentation of our work. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Thank you, Janet. All right. Roll call vote, Nikki,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. So that is unanimous. Thank you all. I think we ended up with a pretty good result there. A lot of collaboration. So I think hopefully it'll be well received when we get to the actual presentation. So let's move on to the presentation itself. I tried to capture all the comments from the last meeting. I'm sure I missed something. So I guess we'll open it to comments by anyone that has any.
So I have one on slide 3. There's a bullet point around like public-private partnerships and if we want to say anything about it.
Mhm.
So I think my rec point of view is that I do not believe a public-private partnership will achieve our goal, like in this scenario. And Rick has actually looked into them in the past for different things, and we've even explored them in the past. But like for right now, I don't feel like this is something we should actively pursue.
And
I think
to be
it does.
clear, go ahead.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, to say, I just think that we have a very active rec department. We have a very active like senior center that like they run their own programming, they do their own thing. Like I would say if we didn't have that or didn't want to support it, that's when you go to public private, you give them the building, you let someone else run it. Like that is not who we are, at least for now in the near future. So I feel like we can acknowledge that we've poked around and done our homework, but it's probably not on the table for this, at least today.
And you clarified what I was going to ask was, I think it's beyond recreation, right? Because I know you and Tim had some commentary early on in the process, but I think you pointed out like for purposes of the seniors, right? They run a lot of their own programs. They would lose complete control over a
Yep.
lot of that, which is opposite of what we're looking to accomplish with this.
Yep.
So are we okay with the following? Explored preliminarily, but did not move forward due to mass potential major changes that would be required for programming for all involved entities? Does that
Yeah.
accomplish?
And I also, sorry, Janet was trying to say something too. Which,
I was just going to suggest a sentence, but I think that way you said it could be interpreted different ways. I think.
So you're better at this than me, so
Well-
I'll start typing.
No, I mean, I think I would just say, you know, that it was investigated. I like the beginning of what you said, but that we felt the alternatives that were out there and that, you know, would not suit the needs we have of the various departments.
And I think we can emphasize if they ask us that most of these public-private partnerships are for club sports, and recreation is actually using the lowest intensity.
Mhm.
And therefore, it would be kind of falling on the senior center to support that public-private partnership. And you really don't see very many of those around.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah.
So I have explored preliminary, but the alternatives that were out there would not suit the needs of the various departments. And then if someone wants to, because it was in our charge, so I wanted to acknowledge
Right.
we didn't just ignore it. And then obviously, I think between recreation, Bill, and even the comments Nikki made in our live meeting with them, we can move forward with that and answer questions. Who started with page 3? Ryan, I'm just going to make sure everyone's
that was
comfortable.
me. I jumped to it. Yeah.
Okay. Did you have anything else, Jen?
No, I think that was the only thing that stood out.
Okay. Nikki, did you have anything? Then I'm coming to you, Ryan.
Nope.
Okay. Ryan?
I think this is great, Jason, and I actually don't have any notes. My only question was, I think we did kind of touch upon whether or not you wanted information from some of the departments to be sent and integrated into this. I don't know that it needs it, but I know Janet and I didn't send you anything. We did talk about it. We were trying to remember exactly what we were going to get together to send you. But I think you did a good job of summarizing the last meeting. And I don't know if there was anything else you wanted from us before.
I would
And-
say for you and Janet in particular, slide 13. Does that summarize? Because I think we had agreed at that to take the bullet points from the last meeting and add a slide for each of the departments. Right. So Bill had his bullet points, Jen had hers, you and Jen had yours. So that would be the only thing if you have comments, Ryan, to answer your question.
Like I said before, I think that's a good summation. I don't have any notes. I don't know if Janet wants to take a look at it really quick and add anything.
I don't have to reword everything. No, it looks fine to me. Thank you.
If you have typographical things, those can be handled after today. We just can't change substance. All right, so I went to Jen. Tim, any comments from you? Fling.
I think you did a good job with this.
Thank you. Tim Davis.
My only comment would be, so are we jumping wherever right now?
Wherever you want.
All right, so under
Yeah.
conclusion, I know we were talking about, we were for it, we were against it, we were okay with it, we were not sure about it when it comes to putting town offices into Finn. I'm just reading, first time reader, that just comes off of, that's our conclusion that it can happen, but I believe the feeling was it's a possibility, but it's not favored. So I didn't know if we wanted to be more clear on that. Just because of the conversations that happened around Woodward with the community and stuff, everyone thought offices were going in there. So I don't know if we want to reword that to say, like, it's possible, it's not the recommendation of this committee, but it is possible if push comes to shove. something like that.
So extra space depending on library outcome could be available.
Yeah,
Could be.
or
What do you want? Go ahead, Jen.
I was just gonna say, there's also like there were mock-ups where like there wasn't actually extra space; it was community room. So I think there's
Mhm.
like maybe there's something like there's flexible space depending on library needs or other municipal needs.
How about I say flexible space is likely available in most options, but current recommendation is not to explore
Permanent town offices.
permanent town offices
Yep.
until further design is explored. That way.
Yep.
That
Yep.
way, if you all of a sudden have 10,000 square feet, council on aging's happy, library's happy, recreation's happy, then a future committee can deal with that. But that's a great comment, Tim. Thank you. I'm sure you'll fill 10,000 square feet with storage, though, if given the option.
Happily. Yeah.
Okay, Bill Harrington.
I would hope that that flexible space was held for storage and other things that the prime tenants would require. The senior center had, as a result of the fact that we had a building that is now 2/3 town offices. They just kind of moved in the dark of night and took up space that we could have used. So I'm reluctant to even talk about town space or town office space.
But are you comfortable with what we talked about here?
I'm comfortable with
Yeah.
it, but
Yeah.
just the caveat is experience shows they're gonna move in whether you like it or not.
Well, remember, this committee formed no opinion on what should happen with Porterville Hall if this situation happens. So theoretically, obviously there's some ADA issues there, right? That depending on what you do, but there should be more space at Porterville Hall if this comes to fruition for the seniors in this particular example. I realize it's all theory. Okay, Janet, any comments?
All set.
Okay,
I
Ryan,
mean, so much is up in the air, and I like that you've referenced it. You know, I think all the issues are out there.
okay. Ryan, I already hit you. Susan?
I have just a couple of small ones, and this may kind of be included, but just since I've been taking such detailed notes lately, I want to make sure that all of these pieces are included here, if we want them to be. So I know one thing that both Bill and Pam spent a lot of time talking about was having the senior center have that warm feeling, that kind of, homey feeling and that welcoming feeling. And I just want to make sure that the appendix for the Council on Aging and Senior Center, it says the high level intensity of construction and to make sure the space is fit for the purpose. But I don't know if we want to use any of those adjectives and words that Bill and Pam used so often.
Bill, that's a question for you, I think.
Anything that helps our case would obviously be fine with us. If you want to embellish that a little bit, do you want that from us, or do you want to just put something in yourself? We can.
Do you have recommendations, Susan, based on your diligent notes?
Don't throw that back in my face now. That it has to make sure the space, I don't know, when we say is fit for the purpose, maybe to make sure that the space is a warm, welcoming environment.
I'd simply say non-educational or warm welcoming.
Yeah.
I was gonna say clinical at first, but that sounds like not appealing for schools.
No.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, how about make sure the space is warm and welcoming and not just repurposed school classrooms.
Great.
What else, Susan?
The other piece, and I think it's here a little bit, but multiple, everyone talked about storage being an extra important facet. And I just want to make sure that we also don't lose the fact that everyone is, and we even just all said it a minute ago, storage, storage, storage. And I just want to make sure that that is referenced at least a little bit somewhere in the presentation as well.
How about under conclusion, I add a bullet point after library, so I'm on slide 7, and just say significant discussion related to storage. Don't underestimate the amount of space that will be needed.
Perfect. Love it. And the only last one is, are we counting Southborough Youth and Family Services as part of the extra municipal offices? I know they were in almost all of the different versions that we talked about. And I wasn't sure if we wanted to call them out specifically or not.
I thought about that. I mean, in fairness to Sarah and her team, they haven't been part of this process. I like how DRA has shown it's possible for them to be part of the process, but I also know that there's other, potential permutations that they may explore well before this project comes to fruition. So, I'd be open to adding a comment of can be flexible enough to accommodate Southborough Youth and Family, but I also know that Sarah really wasn't additionally consulted as part of this effort, other than the information she had provided when we were doing the Woodward plans, right? Especially the needs for privacy and obviously everything that goes on with their day-to-day operations. So, thoughts from everyone else?
I would think if Sarah's group could be part of the community center, that it would be an asset in a lot of respects. I know she wants to be somewhat not a publicly open office, so to speak, but it's just kind of a natural tie-in with the senior center and so forth. That I know we work together very well with and strongly with Sarah and her group on issues that relate to the seniors in town and her charge as well. So I think if there's space for them, that would be a good place for them to land, if that would be in their viewpoint.
How about I just write space would be available to support their programs if desired.
Okay, I have another thought.
On that topic or totally separate?
Let everybody else go first.
All right. So I think Susan's my last one. So I just want to ensure Susan is
Okay.
done, or at least done for now.
I am done for now.
Okay.
Thank you for the
All right.
clarification.
Go ahead, Jane.
Well, now that I think about it, when I step back and look at it, it's a very nuts and bolts presentation. I think when you were talking about the environment it provided and all that, this made me think of it. I think maybe more of a value thing, that we like the option. I like the fact that the architects mentioned that each entranceway would be unique and would make it look like what it was. Like if the library ended up doing something, but it's senior center, that it would look like a senior center, not like a school. That was one of our goals, and that we're happy with the designs that came up, that they seem to accomplish each group's priorities. Some more positive spin. Either in the beginning or the end.
I think that goes in the beginning, like under process, and just say all design options met programmatic needs of various groups, and also provided design option, that's repetitive, also provided appropriate entrances.
Well, it's not just entrances, but that was the
Entrances
like when we talked to our the library board of trustees, when I said that they're trying to make each section be what it should be, and the entrance would reflect that and stuff, they were very impressed with that.
Okay.
That it wasn't just going to be a revamped blah building, whether or not it looked like a school, but it was going to try to meet the needs of each group in its appearance and
So can you help me with wording there?
Yeah, come back to me. I'll work something
Yeah.
out.
Or, I mean, we can approve it if the committee is comfortable with the general gist of that commentary, and Janet can give it some thought and send a bullet point after. I think that's
Okay.
entirely appropriate.
Yep.
Go ahead, Susan.
Thought of another one. Sorry, what Janet was saying triggered in it. And the map kind of does this, but did we want it? So going based on what Janet was saying about the feelings and how they took all of our different thoughts into account, do we want to mention liking in many cases the joint use and the ability to have the joint use gym and the joint use cafeteria and the joint use common room? So that's represented on the map, but do we want that possibly under the process part or somewhere, or maybe on the map pages themselves?
Well,
Yep.
so you could do it at the again, like a beginning statement,
Mhm.
like a statement, and then something about that the advantages of, something about the advantages of combining these uses.
Yes.
That we saw a real plus to that. And then list, shared spaces, communication between departments, whatever anybody else thinks of.
Yeah, I like that because I also think like if you were to ask rec if they want to go build their own building or have one in joint with like senior center, I think we'd rather have this like intergenerational building, right?
Yeah.
And breathe life into that. So I think that that could be a good way to open this too.
Yeah. I wrote significant advantages, significant overlapping common space and adjacencies in terms of operations and need for capital. A lot of this, I think, this is why we're a committee of 7, in my opinion, right? Plus our ex officio. I think it's important that no matter how, like, I at least, prime it with walking through the slides, I think a lot of it comes out in the discussion with the
Mhm.
select board. And I think that's where I think each of you, whether you represent, a board or commission, or like you're one of our at-large members, I think it's important to reiterate these things if it's not abundantly clear either in words or how the delivery of the initial presentation goes. And you should feel welcome to do that. It's a joint meeting on purpose, to accomplish just that.
So maybe we need an introduction page, like not just beginning of the process page, another slide that says, says something that I'll write down.
Yeah. Is everyone comfortable with that?
Yes.
I mean, all we're doing at this point is rehashing things that have certainly been discussed and agreed to
Mhm.
by the committee for months. So I will, unless anyone objects, kindly delegate that to Janet to kind of insert. Jane, you can send me the rough bullet points and I get it into the format.
Pardon me?
You can send me the rough bullet points.
Yeah.
And I can get it into the format of a new slide.
I'll
once you
probably
have
do a paragraph. But yeah,
however it works.
okay.
Other comments? All right, so before I make a motion on the presentation, just logistics wise, as of now, we are on the February 6th select board meeting. It's a hybrid meeting, so your presence counts in person and virtually. So, obviously depending on everyone's desire to be there. I will post a meeting just so we're covered no matter who shows up. My intent is to go live. My expectations were going to be 8 p.m. or so or later on that particular meeting. I'm trying to anchor it right around the 8 p.m. slot, and Andrew Dennington is doing his best to help with that piece of it, just so everyone can prepare. I don't know what else they have that evening. My understanding is it doesn't seem like it's a budget meeting. Given the time of the year, I think it's other business around us. So that obviously can change at their discretion. So I will keep everyone updated, but that's the latest and greatest I have from them as of now. Are there any other comments in the presentation? All right. Then I will make a motion that we accept the presentation with the edits discussed tonight, with the understanding that Janet will write a introductory paragraph to reflect the conversation that happened. There a second?
Second,
Any further discussion? All right, roll call vote. Nikki,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Bill,
yes,
Janet,
Yes,
Susan,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
and I am yes as well. So that vote is unanimous. So then, meeting minute wise, just from a procedural perspective, what I will likely do, unless anyone has a real appetite to approve 2 more sets of minutes, is the select board can actually approve our minutes after the fact. So if we dissolve, we'll dissolve after our presentation, we can just send the minutes to them to approve. Does anyone have any objections to that process? So it would be the minutes from tonight's meeting and then their own minutes essentially from the February 6th meeting. Okay. Who has tonight's minutes, just so I know? Or do we not decide that?
Oh, I have them.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Is there any public comment?
Actually, sorry, back to the presentation real fast. Did we decide who's going to be giving the presentation the presentation to the select board?
I was planning on it, but maybe I presumed, just, but that's kind of what I was saying with I was gonna give the bones of the structure, but it's all 7 of our presentation, in terms of each of you represent a different view, and I feel like you may have different slant, but especially given how in sync we are on the final work product, it's not like rec is saying this doesn't work for us and library is all in and council and aging somewhere in the middle. That's where we were on the Woodward thing, right? If no one really could kind of decide where we're at, right? Because there's so many flaws. Here, I think I'll provide the bare bones unless someone else wants to do that. And then I think the each of you should represent your own interest in anything additional you want to add. That's my thought.
I'm biased, but Janet gives really good presentations.
All right, then Janet can do it.
oh, no, for the library.
I'm fine with that. That's not a problem.
Any other questions, comments? That's a good question, Susan. Sorry.
So, Jason, I just wanted to let you know the library trustees met and we had long conversations about the construction program, and Janet talked about the work of this committee, and they did vote to make the project, right, the grant funding contingent on our participation in the program is going to be a contingent on gaining the amount. So it took a while to get there in the discussion because there was a lot to go over, but I'm trying to explain this to you and I didn't even do a good job. I didn't do a good job of explaining your question, which was also, but I wanted to let you know that they voted in favor of basically moving forward with the project if we get into the grant program. So that's where we're at now with the library trustees.
Okay. Thank you. There any other business that anyone wants to conduct? All right. I will make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Did we do public comment or did we skip that by accident?
I thought I said it, but it might have been then Susan asked her question. So I will just make sure. Is there any public comment? I'm seeing none. So now I'll make a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Tim. Is there a second? All right, that's been seconded. Roll call vote. Nikki?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Bill?
yes.
Janet?
Yep.
Susan?
Yep.
Tim?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Thanks, everyone. Talk soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Night.